All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Art. Today is live from the studio with Kelli Thompson. Before we get started, I just want to make a few quick announcements. We're recording this, and you guys will all receive a link to the recording. Anyone can watch those, so please share them with your friends and everything. They're free to watch for anyone, but I'm going to send everyone a link probably later this week. It takes a few days for us to get that ready. If you guys have any questions, um, please type them in the chat and I will answer.
Oh, they can't hear you.
Yeah, here. Why can't anyone hear?
I don't know. I got a little note that says we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody else can. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't be reading the comments.
That's okay. I believe that was just one attendant. If you can't hear, it's probably on your computer. Everyone should be able to hear. All right, so moving along. Yeah, but if you guys do have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll ask Kelli on your behalf. Kelli is an artist that I know from grad school of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. So we go way back. She's exhibits currently in, I believe this year she exhibited in New York, Nashville, and Canada. I believe I'm correct on that. Okay, well, maybe not. I think I just got that from your website, Kelli.
Canada sounds nice.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So all right, so are you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You'll see my husband, my production assistant, you saw him pop in the background. He's gonna try to not disrupt us, but if you see somebody walking around, that's who it is. So yeah, thanks so much, Ollie. So yeah, I live in Queens, New York. I am originally from Monroe, Louisiana. So I don't know if most of you are in North Carolina, but I'm a Southern person too. And I'm from not the Cajun part of Louisiana, Northeast Louisiana. So really close to Arkansas and Mississippi. When I was 18, I left there and I went to New Orleans for undergrad at UNO. Majored in studio art. And then after Katrina happened in 2005, I moved to, let me turn off my chat notifications. I moved to Boston, which is where I met Ollie, and went to grad school there at the museum school in Tufts University. And then I left Boston in 2010 and came to New York. So I've been in New York since August 2010, so a little over 12 years. New York made the most sense for you can have an art career here. There's a lot of galleries and there's a lot of opportunities to show work. People actually buy work here. There's opportunities to sell. So, and there's a ton of art jobs because you don't usually leave grad school showing and selling your work. That's a thing that you have to build to over time. But there's a lot of jobs. You can work in galleries. You can teach art. There's a lot of different places, studios that have classes. And then there's a ton of colleges in New York. So it made sense to come here. Also, I found when I got here, I was able to kind of continue my education. I was just around artists all the time. I mean, we all move here, or a lot of us do. So I was continuing to have discourse about contemporary art and about my own work and have studio visits with other artists and get feedback. And that's really important. When you're developing your artistic practice rather than sort of having tunnel vision and just working by yourself and not having conversations about what you're making and staying aware of what other people are making. That's a really important part of being an artist. So I want to start with my work from 2012. So we're going to go back 10 years. I thought it might be interesting for you guys to see what the trajectory of my work looks like and how an artist makes changes and progresses through their life's work and their body of work. So let's see. I don't use Zoom very often, so I hope I don't make too many mistakes. Let's see. I'm going to share my desktop with you. And now you can see my desktop. And then I think I could start the slideshow here. Okay. So let's see. So the first one I'm going to show you. So I started out making portraits, painting portraits when I was a little kid. That's all I wanted to do. That was my interest in making art, was all an interest in painting and drawing people and animals. Let's see, I made some notes. Portraiture is what inspired me to make art when I was a child. I've always had a strong interest in people, photos and pictures of people. And as I got older and I thought more about my work, it became clear that my interest in people actually derived from the emotional connections that we as viewers feel when we look at photos or paintings of people. They were just more interesting to me. So that's what I painted. I mean, really all through childhood, drawings, teenage life, all through grad school or undergrad and then grad school. Everything changed, the context in which I painted people changed a little bit, but this is where I was right after grad school, and this is from 2012. So right around the time I moved to New York. I was making paintings of my friends, really. I had a system where I would go and sit with a friend and take a lot of photos of them. This painting is called Anna and Cat. This is my friend Anna and her cat, the cat's name was Cat, from Breakfast at Tiffany's. And I would then take the images and do a little bit of photoshopping. It was really hard to get a cat to sit where you wanted it to and look where you wanted it to. So I would adjust the photos a little bit before I started a painting from the photos. And so they end up with this little bit of layer of artificiality and sort of stiffness, I think, in addition to just the way that I depict flesh and the way that I depict the space with this gradient behind them. They're not in a real place, right? Like everything about it is very artificial. So let's go through a couple of those. We've got this one. This one, by the way, I started making really big work. This is 60 by 48. In undergrad, I made bigger pieces. Early life, I wanted to just make big work. And honestly, when you get a little bit older and a little further along in your career, you realize that you do need to have some smaller pieces, because those are the pieces that people can actually hang in their homes and have room for. Those are the pieces that people can afford. And I have all these giant paintings, and then you got to keep them somewhere if you don't sell them, which is the reality of a lot of the work you make early in life. Is like it just goes into a storage unit or some storage situation in your studio. So Anna and Cat, let's see what's next. I like the animals, especially during this time. I was adding them to my portraits because it was this whole other layer of connections. I mean, this cat is really just staring right through you. This is my friend Anya. This is Anya on orange. And this cat, not Anya's cat, this cat's name is Ori. Just a second, here we go. This cat's name is Ori and belonged to another friend. So I felt like they fit together pretty well. Again, with the animals, the way that I paint the flesh is sort of, I think of it as over describing the skin. Right. So every little inch it remains in focus. When you look at someone and you're talking to someone and you're in real life, a lot of things, just the way that we see things, blur out. If you're looking at someone's face, you're not exactly looking at like their neck, chest, shoulders. Those things stay a little bit blurry and out of focus, right? So, and when you take photos, you have a lot of background and a lot of blurriness. But the way that I depict my portraits and my figures, I keep everything in tight focus. I use a lot of layering, so a lot of thinning out of paint and then going over an area again, and then again, and then again to build more and more detail. And I liked the way that that works with the fur also. I was able to get some really incredible details painting fur, and I found that to be super satisfying and fun. Also, I just really like animals. I like cats and dogs, and I actually don't think I put a dog painting in here, but so this one, I just put 3 of these portraits in here so I could just kind of show you where I'm coming from. But this one is a painting of me from 2014. So the 2 before were from 2012. This is from 2014. I forgot to give you the size of the last painting. That was 60 by 48 inches. So we're still working pretty big. This is 42 by 36. I'm getting a little bit smaller here. I was getting kind of bored, I think, with the portraits. It was my identity was to paint portraiture. I've been doing that throughout my life, and change is scary, especially when you've gotten or you feel really comfortable with something, gotten, really good at something, and you do it that way. The idea of switching and making something else as an artist, or at least for me, some artists probably have no problem with this, but at least for me, was really a scary idea. So this was sort of toward the end. I was of the portraits. This one is Self from 2014, 42 by 36 inches. I was experimenting with more elements of surrealism, which I feel like that paired with the colors and the heightened depiction of the flesh. I've always felt a close connection with surrealism. So I had sort of a what am I going to do next moment, right? And I wanted to keep the gradients. I've been using these gradients behind my figures for a long time to make color connections. I mean, in this one, you can clearly see the blue echoed in the eyes and the fingernail polish. I don't know if I can actually go, I don't know how to use this slide thing, but anyway, this is where I ended up, was with the plants, right? So I kept the gradient. I kept an interesting color relationship. Here we're using contrasting colors here, which just means opposites, right? Complementary colors. So green and red. And I found tropical plants to be a way that I could render them in a similar way to how I was painting the skin. So I messed around with this for a little while. It took a few years of playing with it to start to understand what I was doing, but I think this is a pretty good example of sort of where I went right after the portraiture. And once I found that the surface of the tropical plants was an interesting one, I thought of fruit, right? So I did some paintings involving fruit. This one is watermelon. It is 24 by 30. The plant was actually, the previous one was 30 by 24. So the same sort of dimensions. And we're getting a little smaller. I'm being a little more practical, especially when you're making paintings and you feel like you're not quite sure. I think it made a lot more sense to work smaller, than to commit to like a giant panel on a big piece of art that I would spend a lot of time on. Um, so with watermelon, I brought back elements of the figure. I I think it's interesting how hands are almost as identifiable as someone's face. Um, I know what my mom's hands look like. I can imagine them in my head, and like my best friends, and just it's they're very specific to a person. So these are actually my hands, but the expressive nature of hands and how identifiable hands are made me want to bring hands back into it, but not the whole portrait. That was a little bit too much. So because I was discovering these other elements that I was really interested in, like the gradient from the portraitures, and uh and also new subjects. So we've got the fruit and the plants. The surface of this watermelon is definitely, I was able to hyper detail with lots of layers, just like the skin, like over description of the surface. Um, so let's see. Next we had the peaches. The peaches were really wonderful. I mean, you can look at a peach and see the relationship between the skin of the peach and the skin of a person. I think, they're like soft and fleshy. The color's a little bit different, but I rendered them in a really similar way, and that was very fun. Also, I started working on round panels at this point. I don't do that super often, but I have a few, and they're just they're fun to mix things up, every once in a while. I love circles. You'll see more circles. I'm using circles a lot lately, so more circles coming. So this is 36 inches diameter. This one is from 2016. The watermelons from 2016, the plants from 2016. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. I'm trying to make sure that I give you all the information about each piece. If you have any questions, share them in the chat and Ollie will throw them out to me. Let's see, and then the bananas. I don't make a lot of yellow paintings, but I did really enjoy making these bananas. But again, very similar, very similar depiction of the flesh of the banana, as was the thick leaves of the tropical plant and the flesh of a person. So this is where I ended up next. This is a painting from 2017. It's called On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. It is, my idea was to have a friend whose hands I thought were really interesting, and I could identify very clearly, sort of mock the plants, like just a little joke, try to blend in and be plant-like. So that's what we did. So I created this. I usually create Photoshop images first, very roughly piecing things together, and then I hold on, and then yeah, paint from there. So I boosted the gradient color, obviously. I started working not just with, whoa, there we go. Not just with lights and darks, but moving from one color to a completely different color. This one also, I got big again. This one's 42 by 36. And here, this one has a buddy, a partner painting. So these are the leaves of the banana tree, and the same basic idea, just sort of mocking the shape, but with arms. These pieces are both from 2017. So this work it all takes a lot of time, right? It's especially the bigger pieces. It's very time consuming, a huge commitment. And I think I got to a place where I wanted to just strip out all of the content and let the gradients build a composition. So I made a series of abstract paintings. This is the first one. It's called Jacob Riis. Jacob Riis is a public beach in New York City that we go to, that we love. There are really nice beaches here. It's a shock, but there are. And so yeah, this was about using lines and gradients to just create movements. I wasn't rendering anything. It was all about taping hard edges and painting gradients in, and just sort of wait and let it dry, come back tomorrow. It was a very mechanical based process of building a painting, as opposed to rendering an object for hours and hours. And I really enjoyed it. I played with color combinations here. I was able to see the results of those faster. The reward came a lot quicker. These pieces are all much smaller. This one, they really don't get much smaller. Let's see, I wrote down about
Hey,
this.
Kelly, a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So are these acrylic or oil?
Oh, these are all oil. Everything you've seen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Clarify that.
Yeah, sure. Very good question. Sorry, I left that out. Yeah, oil dries a lot slower. And so, especially for making the gradients and for painting the way that I do, rendering the flesh with the thin layers, that all sort of works a little bit better with oils. You can use a lot of medium and make the paint super. Medium is a chemical that because oils, you can't use water, right? They're oil based. So you'll take a medium to like thin them out. So you can people use linseed oil. I use something called liquid, as opposed to using water. And then when you're using oils, you also use like Gamsol or like turpentine, but turpentine's bad for you. We have better versions of turpentine, one called Gamsol, to get the paint out of the brush. So anyway, where was I at? Okay, so these really don't get much bigger than 18 by 24, these next pieces. And I felt like I was experimenting when I was making these. But the reward for the work was coming a lot faster. It felt very freeing to shed all preconceived notions of what I had of what one of my paintings looked like. I had a really good time with these. I didn't quite understand where I was going. I knew I was experimenting. I knew that I wasn't going to hang these up in galleries and say, this is Kelli Thompson's work. It didn't feel like what my work was supposed to be, but it felt like a place where I could sort of regroup and refocus and like rest and have fun again. I mean, I was making these very labor intensive big pieces, and if you don't know why you're making them, then why are you making them? So let's see, I have a couple more of these. I gave these titles, mostly I named them after Primus songs. I don't know if you know the band Primus, but I was listening to a lot of Primus around this time, and just using their crazy titles to sort of label these. So let's see. I think this might be the last one that I have in of the abstract pieces. And then we'll get somewhere a little more interesting. So I worked on these for 2017, 2018, approximately. I wanted to do some more representational pieces, some representational being paint real objects, right? I have always done that. I was ready to get back to that. I had a good break. So then it became like, I can't really let go of these abstract pieces. I know that they're important. How do I use what I've learned through making those and find a place where they meet the sort of labor intensive representational work that I was making before. So this is my first attempt. This is a really big painting. It had to be big to have all of the detail of the abstract piece and all the shapes that I wanted to fit in, and then also have room for large enough shells in this case for so that I could get the detail. I mean, the larger the object, the more detail you can fit into it. So seashells, again, like the fruit, like the tropical plants, it's a natural object. I feel like there's a relationship to the body in like the palette, and palette being the colors, and the shape, the forms. So, and also I love the sea. I mean, I've already made the Jacob Riis painting, the abstract piece. I love seashells. I have a huge collection of seashells. So this is where I went first. I liked this painting. It wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. We're in a period of flux in my practice, sort of right here. I made a couple of these. They were all pretty big. And then this was my next attempt. So again, we've got if you look back on the other two larger pieces with the hands and the plants together, this is similar. This one's called Political Science. But again, it's the hand sort of mocking the plant, like a little joke. And I thought maybe, whoops, oh no. Let's get back to, wait, no. Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. All I know is I don't use Zoom very much at all. And really, obviously, slideshow either. I'm just technologically challenged, which is why my husband is here helping me with everything. So this piece is called Political Science. It is a painting on its own. But I thought maybe a way to incorporate the abstract shapes and the abstract work would be to hang them next to each other and have these pieces inform each other. And I think you can see what I'm trying to do here. You know, I have the smaller piece and the larger piece, and just the different brightnesses. I've got like I'm pulling from the paints that I'm using in the green shades that I'm using in the flowers, and just translating them into the abstract pieces. I liked this. It wasn't exactly where I needed to go. This is from 2019. And then 2020 hit. So we all remember early 2020. It was a pretty dark time. 2020 was a year when I decided that I just wanted to paint flowers. It's comforting, and flowers are beautiful. Again, they have the relationship to the body, especially tropical flowers with big, thick leaves. This is from a banana plant. I feel like so many of I get my flower resources from trips to New Orleans, where I have family, and there's a tropical climate, so there's a lot of tropical flowers and plants growing around there. And then I've made a few trips to tropical places and come back with source material, but I use the internet a lot. Pinterest is really good for images of wacky plants that don't grow in North America. But so I made this piece, and in this piece, I used the abstract elements as more of a framing device for the painting. So just an extra element in the composition with the object. They inform each other. There's a little bit of overlap. This piece is called Musa velutina. It's the name of this pink or red banana plant. These are real. They grow in South America, tropical places, Thailand. Um, so I felt like this worked really well. I was really happy with how the elements were finally coming together in a way that made sense, and did not feel forced. So let's see. So this is another one from 2020. This is a cannonball flower, from a cannonball plant. Also, they grow in tropical areas. I sort of built this shape. I was thinking of a window ledge, a bit, and we were in Thailand. I got married earlier this year, and we went to Thailand for our honeymoon. And I found out that the cannonball tree, which these flowers grow from, the Buddha was born under a cannonball tree. So cannonball flowers actually have this significance in Buddhism, which I painted this before I knew anything about that at all, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So I liked choosing flowers that could stand on their own. I mean, I feel like I am handling them in a similar way to portraiture. It's like one on a sort of sparse background, you know? So let's see what's next on here. So then I started pushing this a little bit further with the shapes. I brought the body back into it, which was pretty exciting for me. This is my face. I felt like this was a self-portrait. And yeah, I just started to become a lot more comfortable with how these elements all worked together. The botanical elements, the figurative elements, and the abstract elements with the gradients. So here we go. This is a larger piece. Oh, let me give you the size of the one that we just saw. I wrote it down. The cannonball and the Musa Valentina, those were both 24 by 18, 28 by 22. So like pretty small, not huge. This piece is 32 by 26, also not massive. Like I said, no, not this piece. The one, I'm sorry, the previous piece. It's with the face. I don't know how to go back and forth. No, there we go. This one is 32 by 26 inches. So, you know, practical sizes, right? But I do like big art. So I made this one earlier this year. This is called The Loneliest Number. It is 38 by 44 inches. I was sort of thinking about loneliness at this time, and about sitting by yourself with your feet dangling, honestly. So, and again, I get to like work with the hands, I mean the skin, and these are my feet, so it feels like a very personal painting. Let's see, this one is called Vessel. This one is only 24 by 20, so relatively small. We've got, again, the like this one, the shape is just used as a framing device for the piece, so integrated into it that way. And I do love circles now. I've been making quite a few pieces with circles. This one is called Quiet Time. This one's pretty big, 42 by 36 inches. And here we have the figure interacting with the abstract shapes, which is sort of a new level, and something that I'm playing around with and finding pretty interesting. And then this one is called Antagonist. It's there's no figuration, or there's no human figure represented here, but I'm doing this sometimes. I have some pieces that I just don't feel like, I'm not trying to force all three elements together, you know, if they're all existing together as a body of work, some of them have everything, some of them have two things, you know, like I feel like they all inform each other. And I wanted to show you this one because it was an example of a different way to use the shape, sort of in the context of the work. So, do you guys? That's the last slide that I have. Let me go stop the screen sharing. What time is it? 2:07. Okay. Ollie, are there any questions before I move on to the activity, or?
I think you're current on any questions. I think you're ready to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So, what we're gonna do for the activity is we're gonna go back to the abstract pieces that I was making. We're gonna make kind of a simple, oh wait. Here we go. I forgot it's all set up already over here. I think that this makes sense. Let me move things around a bit. We're gonna build an abstract painting using the techniques that I was using to build the abstract pieces. We're gonna try to create some movement throughout the piece. This is an example, but I'm gonna show you how to do it from the beginning. It does work a little bit better in oils, just because oils don't they don't dry as fast. So if you you'll see once you start using acrylics, it's just easier to blend oils because they don't dry as quickly. But I made this one with acrylics, so acrylics will work fine for what we've got right now. So what you're gonna do first, let me find my water. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make a square. So what I'm using here is called canvas pad. It's just literally gessoed pieces of canvas that come in a pad. If you got canvas board, that's great. If you have really anything that you can put acrylic paint on. So let's see. Is this a good? Yeah, this should be fine. So first we're gonna make a square in the middle of our board. On this one, I ended up building off of the square. So we want it to sit in the middle, but we don't want it to be too small. But we want to, you can also just take this technique and build your own and go whichever directions, whichever shapes you want. I want to start with something really simple just so I can show you. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I'm going 5 inches, maybe 5.5. Okay. Does this look? Yeah, this looks good. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5.5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. I'm putting those together. Okay, so now we want to draw an X right across from one corner to the other, and then from the corner to corner here. Okay, so in this piece, I went with yellow and red. And it sort of, obviously it made an orange. Yellow and red make orange. I was thinking it's always best to to have one of the colors you're working from be light, like a white, or in this case, yellow, because it can create this movement, right, across. So you could use a light version of red or blue or something like that. But I want to just use stuff right straight out of the tube because I think this is going to be a lot more streamlined. Here, I like this magenta. If you guys couldn't tell from looking at my work, I love pink a lot. So I'm gonna go for the pink. I'm gonna use the magenta, and then also I'll use white just to lighten up one end of it. And then something, let's see. Maybe blue, because once the blue mixes with the magenta, it'll be a nice purpley color. Okay. So, got those out. I don't know that this is quite close enough. Maybe I can bring this down. Okay. Hope that's good. So what I'm going to use, I told you guys to masking tape. That's totally fine. Painter's tape. This is a type of painter's tape that I've used for all of my pieces, and it's called frog tape, and it's really incredible. If you're very serious about this and you want some really hard, crisp edges, go for the frog tape. It costs a little bit more, obviously, but I mean, not too bad. I think that this roll is probably $8. So, oh, I've got one thing that I kind of forgot was you'll need an X-Acto knife or a ruler. I'm not sure if I put that on the supply list or not. If I didn't, I apologize. Or I would X-Acto knife or scissors is what I meant to say. But just watch and see what I'm doing, and maybe you can figure out a way around it. So first we're gonna focus on these two triangles on the outside. Okay. And then without pressing too hard, you can cut. I could also use scissors. Let me grab some scissors and see how this would work so I can show you if you do not have an X-Acto knife just laying around your house. Well, see, from here we just needed it really once. Because what we're doing is we're masking the two opposing triangles. Boom. Let's see. I'm gonna put this one down here. And you know what you can do is you can just cut right to the tip, and that works. Actually, look, if I cut before I start, if I cut it here, then I've already kind of got the shape I need. Okay, great. So now we just need to block off the sides over here. If you've used a pencil, which I'm sure most of you have, to draw your shape, be careful not to touch it too much, you know, because the pencil can smear around and give you some smudges on your panel. or your canvas board. Okay. All right. So I've got my water here. You need your water. You need brushes. I'm going to start. Oh, and I need paper towels. Oh, man. Let's see. Got it. Okay. So I'm going to start with the blue on the edges. Okay. So we're just going to lock that in here. You want to kind of make it as smooth as possible. It's difficult with, a little bit difficult with acrylic paint because acrylic paint dries really quickly. It's water soluble, but it also dries really fast. So when you're rinsing out your brush, make sure you get all of the paint out. So hit the bottom of the jar. It sounds like a really obvious thing. Most of you probably already know that, but just a heads up because you don't want to carry the colors over from one to the other. So now we're going to get our pink. I'm not sure that you can see great. Sorry about that. Let me turn it this way. So before I start mixing the pink and the blue in, I'll just fill in that whole area and then I can go back here and sort of mix them a little bit better. Maybe like the tiniest bit of water would be helpful to do this. Okay. And then I'm actually going to add a little bit more because we got some blue down at the bottom. And then for the very tip, we want white or light pink. So make sure that you can kind of see, you can see what I'm doing here. So we'll take mostly white right here. We'll just get a small amount of the magenta. We'll put that at the bottom. You don't want any of this to be super thick. It won't blend quite as well. I feel like once you start doing it, you'll get a feel for how much is too much or when you need a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to take a dry brush while it's still wet, kind of blend this together. If that, yeah, there we go. Okay, not perfect, but close. And I'm trying to move through this pretty quickly. So if you have more time, you can certainly take your time. So now we're gonna do the other side, same way. Start with the blue. So I actually have my first solo show coming up in February. I say this because if you don't live in New York as an artist and think about becoming an artist and what that takes, and think about what it takes to get your work into galleries, let me tell you. Um, when you come to New York or when you're in any city where there's an art scene and you're making art and you're interested in showing work, building a network is really important. Going to galleries, meeting the people that run galleries, not just in a very casual way, not approaching them and saying, "Hi, my name is Kelly and I make art. Would you like to show my art in your gallery?" Right? Like that's not cool. You're like coming on way too strong with that. So you just show interest and you show up. It's very important. And in that way, you meet people, they see you over and over again. They become aware of what you're doing in your studio. You get studio visits with other artists, and you get studio visits with people who own galleries who are like maybe interested in just coming by as a casual thing. I mean, it's all about having a community of artists, art makers, art folks around you. Um, And the first thing that really happens usually is group shows. So even out of grad school, you're put, especially in grad school, you're put in a lot of different group exhibitions at, there's a lot of artist run spaces. Artist run spaces mean that they're not very commercial. They don't like really make a lot of money. But they're the art for the art's sake. They're there so that artists have a chance to see each other's work and curate exhibitions. Some people are very interested in curation, which just means, oh, you see what I did? I didn't wash my brush and I got pink in the blue. Um, but having an opportunity to curate shows is important for some folks. And it just builds a network. You build a network of community around you, and people watch your work develop. And eventually, you get a show. And I've been in New York for, like I said, a little over 12 years. And I got my first solo show, which is a big deal. I'm very excited. It's like a gallery that sells work, which is great. They're a commercial space. And yeah, I feel really good about it. But that's kind of how it works, you know? It's never too late. Um, you make the work anyway. I was once told, and I totally feel this way, if you are an artist and you're still able to make your work, then you're winning, right? So many people that Ollie and I were in grad school, and life is hard and you have to make money. And so they kind of stop making their work or stop working in the arts or whatever, life happens. But if you're still making your work, then you're doing great. And I feel that way too. Um, all right. So look, I was able to even add a little bit. This side's already dried. So I was able to add a little bit of a brighter white on top, because once the paint dries, you can layer on top of it. Okay. Keeping an eye on time. I'm gonna hopefully get this side and the other side finished by 3 o'clock. Might not take that long. All right, so I'm gonna pull some white here. I'm going to blend this together with my dry brush. If your brush is dry, the bristles don't stick together the same way they do when your brush is wet. So it just means the brush is softer, and a softer brush can pull paint together and blend paint in a really soft way without leaving soft, in that there's not a lot of streaks or marks, right? Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's pretty good to start. Let's pull. Taking the tape off is absolutely the best part. Pull the tape off. I mean, honestly, I maybe made all of those abstract pieces just so I could have more times pulling tape off, because that is the most satisfying thing ever. Okay, so now let's see if we're dry. This side is dry. This side is almost dry. This part isn't dry, so I'm going to tape over here. I do have a hairdryer. If you have a hairdryer and you have put too much paint on, which is, I mean, too much, just too much for it to be dry right now. That's all I'm saying. Then you can shoot it with a hairdryer. Definitely on the cold setting. You don't want to start any fires. Okay, so I'm going to try this with instead of an X-Acto knife, I'm going to try doing it with a scissors this time. But it's not going to pull the paint off, especially if you don't press it down too hard. You really want to just press it on the edge, right? So watch me, just really light right there. You don't have to smush it all down. That's going to possibly mess up your paint. I mean, probably not, but possibly. Okay, so now I've got another piece here. I'm going to cut here. We're just masking these sides so that we can do the opposites. Like a little bit wet over there, but I think we're gonna be okay. There's a little gap in the middle, so see, I don't have to press it down. I can just like very lightly tap and everything's good. Okay, so I'm gonna mask the other side. There's a little gap right there, but I'm gonna fix that later. There's not really much I can do about it at this very second. Ooh, gonna move this up. No. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh no. Man, if y'all are still with me, thank you very much. I feel like this is a pretty kind of a boring demo. Let's see. Painting is slow. It's a long game. Oh, I cut it the wrong way. Okay, so cut it. See, I cut it that way. It needs to be cut this way. No, Kelly. Oh my goodness. Let's try one more time. Okay. Okay. Gotta cover that part up. All right, we got our edges locked down. All right, so one more thing to do as far as tape goes. It is 2:31. We are good. All right, so this time, make sure your brush is clean. Also, make sure you don't have a ton of water in it. You always want to have a paper towel. The paper towel, the cleaning, it all just helps you control the paint, control the colors that you have in your brush, control the amount of water that you have in your brush. And this time we're going to go the opposite direction. So we're going to go from light to dark. So I think let's start with the dark. Go right in here. Make sure that edge is pinned down there. I'm not going to do both sides at the same time because I worry that the blue on the other side will dry by the time you want to keep it kind of wet while you're blending and creating a gradient. Okay. What was next? Oh yeah, here we go. Magenta. Okay, so I'm pulling it. See, I'm pulling the two colors together just a bit with the brush while it's wet. Still got my brush that's pretty dry. And then blend these two together. Just as good as you can. Nothing's perfect. Honestly, if you did this and you let it all dry and then you went on top of it and did it again, the paint would be more opaque because you're layering it and you might get a better gradient. Okay. That looks pretty good. It's not quite even there. Let me even that out. Okay, so next, wash your brush, hit the bottom. Next, we're gonna get that light magenta again. Across the top. Okay, so we're pulling these together while they're wet. Kind of ashamed because there's blue in the top there, and I told you guys to make sure you clean the brush. Let me get some, cover that up. It's easy to cover things up, don't worry. Painting is very forgiving, much more so than like ink. You can always kind of fix things with paints. You wait for it to dry and go over it. So got a little bit of uncovered canvas right here. Let me try to fill that with this color. Maybe a little bit of water if you need to smooth something out. Okay. The dry brush. Oh man. It's tricky. Pull this up here. Okay. That's gotta be good. We're gonna move on. It's not terrible. Actually, you know what might make it a little better is that we clean our brush really well, get some white, and just like some bright pink sort of at the end here. Okay, now we're gonna do the other side. Okay, so we're gonna start with the blue. We're almost done. And we're gonna go to magenta. Actually, that's kind of a lot, but I'm gonna take some of it off and then I'm gonna smooth it out. I'm sorry that I'm not considering the camera very well. Let me make sure that my arm stays over here so you can see what I'm doing. My production assistant left me hanging, producing my own Zoom. Okay, so let's blend this blue and magenta. Really just like dark to lighter colors, right? So like the red to the yellow works really well. And then a color plus another color with white works well, you know? But the values, the lights and darks are what give it the movement. Okay, so let's see, last section. Okay. This is maybe lighter than the other side. Be nice if they matched. So I'm gonna find a color that's sort of in between. It's too late. Okay. Hey, that looks great. Okay. It's like just need to even it out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to blend it with a dry brush. And we get to take the tape off again. You could get this much smoother than mine, but just for the sake of moving things along, I'm gonna kind of stop. Actually, see this white in the middle and then this white over here. I want to just, before I take that tape, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of that on the other side to balance it out. Okay. Not too bad. Okay, there we go. There we go with the tape. This is a little not even. But if you're doing this at home, you have time to make it even. So I have a little bleed. You guys might see this. I have some water on a detail brush. And I am cleaning it up. Once the acrylic paint dries, really like truly dries all the way, you can put a little water on top of it and it won't re-wet it too badly, you know? Let's see. Okay, and now I can fix this little spot right here. And I can also just go ahead and cover that up. Okay. I don't know. It's not as good as this one, but I have shown you how I did it. So the way that you would continue is to just keep putting shapes around it, right? Some colors are going to work better than others. And yeah, I think that's kind of all I got, Ollie.
Well, I guess that concludes today's program. Thank you guys so much for coming out, and thanks to all of those of you who are going to watch the recording of this. Please, come out next month for our next program. And yeah, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. And if
Thanks.
you
This
stay
was
on,
really
Kelly, yeah, if we stay on after this, and we'll chat for a second. But yeah.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Thank you very much for listening to me.
All right. Thanks, everybody.